Hello, I'm John Killacky, Executive Director of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts in Burlington. 20 years ago, complications from spinal surgery paralyzed me from the neck down. After 6 weeks in a rehab hospital, I was sent home in a wheelchair. It took months to learn how to walk again. Throughout my recovery, I was eager to meet with others grappling with similar medical situations. In this half-hour documentary, 3 couples talk about how their relationships changed when disability entered their lives. Well-known cellist Joan Jeanrenaud and visual artist Katherine Sherwood are featured with their partners, along with me and my husband, Larry Connolly. What an honor it is to have this documentary broadcast on Vermont PBS, a home for Vermont filmmakers, as well as for its continued commitment to broadcasting issue-driven independent media. I hope you enjoy the documentary, and if you are not already a supporter, please consider contributing to Vermont PBS. I grew up watching independent media on PBS, and it remains as essential as ever. We need Vermont PBS to thrive. Thank you.
We love each other, we trust each other, we care for each other.
It's about sharing love and the friendship.
We were madly in love our first year.
Yeah.
This happens. We're still madly in love, but we went from boyfriends to husbands to lovers, boyfriends, lovers throughout, and caregiver is now put in the middle of this. Looking back at the 10 years, there's still a lot of sorrow. I still dream fully able in my dreams. I still dream that I can run and that I can dance. And it was so hard to wake up from the surgery literally paralyzed from the neck down. And like the night before, running 30 minutes, like going out for a nice jog. The next day, I can't move anything, stuck in this body. And my first memory of you in those, I don't know if it was first hours or first days, I'm not sure what it was, but that every time I would kind of come to consciousness and kind of focus my eyes, I would see your eyes. And that would kind of keep me around. And through the whole journey of me figuring out sort of how to stand up and have braces on my legs, and then walk with in a mirror first to learn to stand visually, because I don't have any sensation on my right side, I don't have the location on my left, and it was like, how am I going to do this? And you were there. You were there with me in every single instant. I walk today because of you. How would you describe our life together, premorbid and postmorbid, before the surgery and after the surgery?
The essential difference is that postmorbid, there's a third character who lives with us, and that's disability or chronic pain or sorrow or whatever it is you want to name that. But there's always another character in the room. And it's not, I don't flatter myself or us by thinking that, we're the only ones who have that. I mean, I think that this third character or this other situation happens to everyone, just by the nature of living or growing older. But it's as though we got old very quickly, just overnight. And that's the biggest difference for me. All of the other stuff negotiating with medical care providers and trying to get apparatus that does or does not work for you. And all of that other stuff is that it seems to me everybody gets their version of that. But to all of a sudden age 30 years and everything that comes with that, that's the biggest difference.
I remember once I was in the weekly therapy session I had, and I asked the therapist, she said, well, what's on your mind today? And I said, well, I'm really concerned about the return of sexual function. I don't know very much about this. This is new to me, and can you give me any help? And I think you remember what she said to me. She said, well, I'm not gay. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And it was the very first step of how rehab hospitals just are not used to dealing with things, very frankly, sexual, or certainly things within a queer context. But remember the tape they showed us?
I do.
You want to describe that tape?
I'm sure for the time it was groundbreaking, but it was, this, where you showed a date, with your newly paraplegic spouse, and where, you pick him up out of the wheelchair, throw him on the bed after giving him several glasses of wine, and, it's look at all the fun you can have with your new paraplegic spouse. And it was, you could see the good intent, but it was so macabre for us at the time. And also it was very heterosexist, and it was also somewhat, retrospectively, it was ill-informed.
The women would pick up their quadriplegic mates and kind of gingerly put them on the bed like a rag doll, and then they'd gingerly get next to them, and then they'd pull the man on top of them. It was sort of like, wow, this seems really complicated. And I had lost sensation in my genitals, and I don't have proprioception, which is so thrusting. So it's like, there's got to be other ways. If you're still defining the sexual this way, what a limiting thing. And
see, I remember them throwing him from the wheelchair. I thought, because it was sort of like this, oh, we'll have some fun. Let's throw you on the, sort of thing. But it was, there was no discussion about something that we found to be true, that you have to redefine what sex is. Redefined, which is to say that the spectrum of what you consider sex and how you find sex to be nourishing and vivifying and pleasurable and renewing, instead of just, I don't think it's just us. I mean, I think that most everybody in America, they run from A to C on what sex is. You sort of do this, then you do that, then you come and you're done, sort of thing. And I thought that, the sexual revolution was supposed to have expanded that, but I think it brought us from A to D, And, but what disability has done for us, I think, has really forced us to walk from A to Z and to see what is every part of the body capable of. We have to articulate what it is we want, when we want it, how we want it, what does this feel like, and not just what does it feel like, but what does it feel like now? But I still think that's a conversation that everybody has to have, but you only have it when you're forced into it, because there's no modeling of it.
Yeah, I really had wished that, they had said to me, where can you feel something? And I would locate here and say, well, if that feels good there, start from there. Mm-hmm. But it was still start from something you don't have anymore. Start from a sensation you don't have anymore. And it was like, it's taken a very long time to be with you on that, about start with where you are.
And what does it mean to start?
What does it mean to
start?
start?
And what does it mean to stop? And what does it
mean to start today?
Right,
in this moment.
This instant.
As we were leaving the hospital, our doctor, Marilyn, was great. And I said to her, I don't think I could have done this alone. I don't think I could have come back alone. And she said something to me that I still remember, which was, well, most people don't. Most people who are alone can't come back from something that's catastrophic. Talk a little bit about that, because you were so key to my recovery and my rehab.
If you're alone, you don't have the motivation, you don't have the encouragement, and you frequently don't have the systems to both do the kind of rehabilitative care that you need to do, but also there's not the emotional and psychological oomph that you need to sort of keep going despite the enormous amount of pain and the depression that creeps in and all of that. And I think that's what she was referring to, was that without somebody by your side, it's just impossible, or almost impossible, to do by yourself. I've talked to some other partners, people who are partnered with people who are disabled, and it's been very interesting because it's very strange. It's sort of like a mortal sin or something to feel this way. You feel guilty about feeling this way, but there's this whole thing about, okay, well, you know, there's the portion of this resentment that, you know, I'm doing all of this stuff, and you know, and that's, you know, that's sort of like me needing to grow up. And then there's a portion of it that's just, well, that's just human nature. Everybody wants to be recognized for what they're doing all of the time, but you know, that's the part of human nature that only leads to suffering, because you're not the center of the world, and most children learn that after a year old or whatever. But there is the whole other part of it that's just difficult, you know, with the disability, and that's that, you know, well, what about my back hurts, and you know, you get all this attention, and what about me? And I know you're in agony today, and this is really terrible what's happening, and it genuinely is. But it's the what about me question. If I don't find some way to negotiate, okay, we need this to be about me, or I need you to recognize that I'm not disabled, but I have this horrible pain thing right now, or I can't take care of this for you right now, or whatever it is, you know, I have no more attention to give. That if I hadn't come to learn how to negotiate those things with you, it just gets bad, worse and worse and worse, and ultimately gets worse for you because it becomes very passive aggressive.
Well, I have multiple sclerosis. When I first noticed the symptoms of it, I had ascending numbness from the bottoms of my feet, and I started having difficulty walking. But now my left side is not that impaired, really, but my right side is, but it has always been located in my legs. I've never had problems with my arms, which is very lucky because I can still play the cello. It certainly changes your life having a disability or having an issue concerning your health that you have to deal with. Your focus changes, I find. I'm not able to do certain things that I used to be able to do.
I was one of the people that wanted her to keep doing, even if she didn't want to. So I struggled at the beginning because I was pushing maybe a little bit. Come on, you can do it, you know. And then I had to realize that no, I didn't have to push her, but I had to support her more. And I took a lot of classes actually on healing, and I became a massage therapist and holistic health counselor. And that helped me a lot. It really helped me understanding that she was the first person in first line.
That's naturally how he is, and I'm just a lucky recipient of that part of his personality too, you know, because I think he does care a lot for people, and he really wants to try and make their life a better life, you know, and he's certainly done that for me.
I give massages to Joan, for instance, and that helps me. Giving massages, also receiving something. There is a circle of energy in there, and that's fantastic.
Have friends been helpful to both of you?
Friends have been helpful, but it's an interesting thing too where, you know, certain friends are better at it than others.
And we had some problem with some friends that didn't really understand. And we tried, and they were somehow, I don't know the word, but they weren't there. They had their needs, even in a situation of need, and they wanted to be satisfied from, and we just needed more than giving at that point, especially when the onset of the illness, and then again there was a change in our relationship during our illness, diagnosed, and so it was there was a complicated moment that we had at the time as a couple.
But I think now that we don't live together, even though we live so close, which is so great because we can still have a very close relationship, but we don't live under the same roof, really. And as a result, I think for us it made it a lot easier. I think for me it made it easier because I can have that a little bit of a detachment where I don't fall into my bad habit of like doing everything that someone tells me to do.
Yes, I'm a little overprotective sometimes, it's true. And again, I think that the fact that we have our space and a buffered zone, those 12 feet of yard, it's good. So we can work out our very rare controversy.
After 10 years of now existing with this condition and seeing many different doctors, from a Western medical doctor who I still continue to see, even though I'm not really sure why, because I never do anything that he recommends. He recommends Western drugs, and I've never taken those. I've always refused those. And maybe it's living in California for so many years, but I think that there are other alternatives that are worth trying. And to me, all of those drugs, they do so many other bad things to your system that I'm not really interested in them. You know, there is no way I'll know what's going to happen a year from now. Alessandra and I had a child together. We had a stillborn child. And that, to me, was the most accurate example of how you can really mess yourself up if you really have this projection of what your life is or what your life is going to be, because you never know. You know, I mean, look at my health. It's the same thing.
So we had some expectation of having a child together, and then there was a stillborn, which it's considered in some cultures and some religion, a stillborn it's a gift almost. It's a little Buddha, in some even said, because it already did all the lives, it did all the transition that he had to do, and he didn't need it to be a person. It's already going to some nirvana, but that it gets confusing and complicated and mixed. But that's what I said. And so I like to say that he is still here, is with us, and I think that what kept us also in the situation, in this relationship, is him, and I just want to acknowledge Mario as a bonding agent in this beautiful relationship we have. I can see now talking, there is some connection with the fact that Jan got MS, and we didn't split for it. Actually, I'm even somehow even more here with her because of that. You know.
Even the Tibetan doctor, you know, feels that my focus of what I've lost really comes from here, which is my womb, you know, and again, that's a really typical Pilates thing too, you know, your core and all that. But it makes a lot of sense to me, and I do think about that, even that, did I suffer that loss to such an extreme that's where it ended up affecting me too. And so all of that, you know, you can't help but think about all of that. And you can't help also but, you know, I'll also look at it as that, you know, I think that he was our little Buddha, and he did give me this great gift. And I feel like I have a really wonderful life, as impaired as others may choose to look at it, or even I might choose to look at it at certain times. It's really, I feel, such a fulfilled life, and I feel very, very privileged to have everything that I do in my life, you know. And maybe it just makes you more thankful of the things you have.
I was listening to a grad student explain his work, and it was outside, and I got the worst headache that I ever had, and within 2 minutes I was completely paralyzed on my right side and couldn't talk and couldn't communicate. When I was brought to the hospital, someone had called Jeff, and I remember being in the hospital and in the emergency room, and then when Jeff came in, I just was so happy, and I have no memory of anything that happened in the next 3 weeks.
My first reaction was to keep Odette happy and routine preschool and all that. So made a few phone calls to pretty much get her out of the picture. Fortunately, I have a great family, and my sister-in-law took her up to Sacramento where she could play with her cousins and all that. That was number one. And following up after that was ICU, critical, intensive care, and getting up there and listening, trying to get as much information through the panic of what was occurring at that moment.
It was very hard to come home, and it's a situation that many people find, because when you're in the hospital, your every need is taken care of, and then when you get home, it just, for me, it came crashing down on me what had happened and how much I would have to repair. They wanted to build a ramp, and I just didn't want to build the ramp because we would have to remove our beautiful lilac tree. So I just insisted, and I said, no matter how long it takes me, and it took me an hour to get a very, very short distance.
I spent a lot of time on the phone having conversations with medical groups, health insurance, rehabilitation projects, and trying to learn what they want to give us, what we've paid for, and what they've cut us off from.
It takes a partnership to navigate through all these things, and
The red tape.
Yeah, and also just the support that that he constantly gave me was the thing that I sprang from.
There's occasions where I micromanage, maybe perhaps too much, in terms of my concerns, whether it's getting down the staircase, answering phone calls, and the capabilities that perhaps I'm thinking that Katherine doesn't have. She does, but I want to overmanage them sometimes. I'm still trying to fill in between the lines, and sometimes I overdo it or do too much, or sometimes I need a vacation from it, and we remind each other of that. Sometimes weeks go by, and it doesn't always happen, but I'm trying to fill in the blanks sometimes. But more often than not, I'm the one who has the blanks. Katherine usually knows how to fill out the grant, and to get the whole thing going again. So,
but I will say, it has been very hard to negotiate this territory between caregiver, lover, partner, co-parent, and so I don't want to sort of state that as being any less difficult.
I do understand more and more through this injury that there's not always a logistical response that I can have in terms of what's going on in your partner's mind, and then so you got to breathe through it and still make that cup of tea.
I was very late, what they call labile, for at least 3 years, and that is when your emotions shift radically from side to side.
Polar. Yes.
So, for instance, when I was getting mad at Odette for doing something, then I would break out laughing. And, that's not too good of a parenting technique. And then also I would...
Yeah, no, you'd be laughing when you should be crying, and then she'd be crying when she'd be...
And then I would be just crying and trying to talk to somebody and saying, I'm not happy. I mean, I'm not sad, I'm happy, but...
Yes.
So that, and I was always an emotional person before, so now when I cry and stuff, my sister always says, oh, that's not the stroke, that's just you.
No, you've always been a crybaby anyway.
Yeah.
But a lot of things get amplified and very, very. So when do you turn your cheek, or when should you get involved? I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But we're nuclear, as a family, it's like, Mom's not feeling good today, but lights are on and she's out there at 11 o'clock still, working away. So that's gratifying to me. And tomorrow we'll fix it. Maybe.
It wasn't until I had the cerebral angiogram that I felt the impetus to work again. And I clearly knew as soon as I saw those images that I wanted to use them in my paintings. So that's how I started back again, and I was very happy that I wouldn't have to give that up, and that was a crucial part of my rehabilitation, was that I knew I was going to be an artist no matter what, a painter no matter what. I merely had to change right hand to the left hand to be able to do that.
In terms of finding her soul or herself, was getting back into this room right here.
That's one reason I'm thrilled to be with a painter, because he understands the motivation for that. And that's why I think it was so important for you to see me get back in the studio, and and for you to get back in the studio as well.
Yes, to leave you alone again.
Yeah. And I would also like to add that don't believe what the doctors say about that you whatever you recover from in a year, it stops after that year, because that's not been true at all for us. And I think it's detrimental to give the patient, okay, you have to get this level of, before before a year happens.
I just saw my gynecologist the other day, and she asked me this question. She said, well, how's your sex life? And I said, it's probably the best it's ever been.